Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chilihead community, by the chilihead community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is a place for you. Up tonight, we have 3 products on deck for Hot or Not, a very fun guest locked and loaded. Episode 131 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for being here and continuing to make this podcast what it is, and sharing this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. Now, up tonight, we have 3 sauces on deck. These are all 3 from Mikey V's. Can't wait to dive into those. Those are going to be on Hot or Not, as well as we have Sam PepperPapi here, and we're going to be talking about how he got started with really growing and getting into the whole entire online communities and plugging in and all the things in between. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump on over to Hot or Not. Welcome on into Hot or Not. Up tonight, we have 3 products on deck. These are all from Mikey V's. These are 3 different sauces. We have the Moroccan Madness. This is a KDB collab sauce, as well as we have the Roasted Garlic Reaper sauce from Mikey V's and the EAFO. Diving into these 3 sauces here. As always, I do not like to read the ingredients ahead of time. I like to let my taste buds do the exploration and really figure out what my taste buds are picking up, and then we learn about the ingredients all together. As well as I don't do things out of 1 out of 10 scale. I do things out of a 1 out of 5. That's based off of 5 different categories. Those categories are heat, aroma, flavor, versatility, burn. Add those up, average them out, and that gives us our total swear word rating. So let's go ahead and check out tonight's first product. Madness. This is a Mikey V and KDB sauce collaboration, and I cannot wait to jump on into this. So first off, let's go ahead and check out this here label. So as you can see there on Moroccan Madness, it's got a nice visual pop, a lot of design going into this, and of course, Mikey V always leaving that lovely signature cellophane on top. So really prominent branding here. Give it a good shake. For those that are keeping track, yes, this does have a cellophane tear. It looks like it has both the twist top tear and the up and down. Oh, wow. So amazing. Right off the bat, you're definitely picking up what smells like maybe some fennel, a little bit of a savory note. Is that cinnamon? Anyways, it is a nice overall savory note, picking up a faint pepper note towards the back, but overall just a very nice savory, smoky, herby vibe going on here. So nice medium consistency, nice texture going on here, seeing seed bits, seeing some overall, spices, a little bit of maybe some pepper blended, kind of pulpy action going on here. But cheers. Wow. Very bold flavor, very nice, heavy hitting flavor right off the bat. Absolutely loving the way that this one comes forward here. You're definitely picking up the fennel. You're picking up what tastes like maybe some onion, some garlic. And then on the finish here is where the pepper really starts to shine. If you're just starting out, you're not going to have to worry about yourself getting burned down or burned out. Packed full of flavor and absolutely a joy the whole way through. Medium heat sauce for you. You're constantly working on your own personal best, pushing yourself to the limits. It's going to be a nice medium to mild sauce depending on where you're at in your tolerance. This would go great on some burgers, some sandwiches, pizzas, some shrimp, some grilled shrimp with this would be absolutely amazing. Now I'm picking up what tastes like maybe a little bit of tomato going on there. It's just this great blend of just savory depth to this. It's got a nice little smoky note, a nice bright pop from the overall spices that are in there. But that fennel is definitely noticeable off the aroma and straight off the taste. And I think that might be cinnamon.
I might be misconstruing that for like, say, an allspice or something of that nature, but we'll find out here in a second. First ingredient, tomato, water, white vinegar, onion, tomato puree, fresh garlic, kosher salt, jalapeno peppers, olive oil, spices, and then the spices consist of cardamom, coriander, cinnamon, fennel, and then a nice kiss at the very end. It says Carolina Reaper pepper powder. I can feel it just ever so slightly on the back of the throat. Not super punching in the face, but a nice medium to mild sauce, depending on where your tolerance is at. Packed full of flavor, great for everyone, and you're really going to be able to enjoy this. A heat coming in at 2.8, aroma of 3.9, flavor of 4.34, versatility of a 4, burn of a 3, for a total swear word rating of 3.61. There we go. Another amazing sauce. This one is from Mikey V's. This is Moroccan Madness, the roasted garlic reaper. You got the sinister Grim Reaper here. Mikey V's, very prominent labeling. The nice touch to the top of the cellophane wrapper here with the Mikey V's branding. Overall color on this sauce is a nice, almost kind of like a burnt orange color to it. Between an orange and a brown, you get some nice specks of what looks like the overall charredness. Nice flow here. From the looks of it on the outside, it looks like a high flow sauce. Both the up and down cellophane rip as well as the around. Nice overall aroma here. A little bit of the vinegar, picking up maybe some tomato. Definitely getting the garlic. What's interesting is it's not so prevalent in the aroma, that overall reaper note that's coming through. You're really left with, there is a pepper aroma, but you're really left more with that overall savory depth and a little bit of the garlic note really carrying forward on this. So cheers. Definitely hit the back of the throat pretty quick. Very well done. Love the way that the flavor profile on this sauce carries forward. And I can feel now towards the back of the throat where that Reaper is starting to latch in. A little bit of a slow build as well going on. If you're working on your own personal best, you're pushing yourself all the time, this is going to be a nice medium to high heat, depending on where you're at. But for me, I would say this is a nice medium heat sauce. As I continue to talk, as I let this do its thing, it is definitely ramping up. There is more of an onset in the back of the throat, but it is a very slow, gradual build. Ingredients of tomatoes, white vinegar, water, fresh roasted garlic, Carolina Reaper peppers, onions, kosher salt, olive oil, Carolina Reaper powder, and spices. I would have thought for sure there would have been some ghost pepper going on in this sauce, with the heat coming in at 3.65, aroma of 4.12, flavor of 3.9, versatility of a 4, burn of a 3.75, for a total swear word rating of 3.88. There we go. Another amazing sauce. That is roasted garlic reaper from Mikey V's. This is the EAFO. For all those that are keeping track, yes, it does have the perforated cellophane. Now, this sauce is much more bright red, much more thick, and overall, it looks like it has a nice flow once you clear the neck of the bottle. Great overall visual pop here. Pepper screaming, flames shooting out its mouth. EAFO, big, bold, and proud. Heat 11 out of 10. Already letting you know and warning you, this is going to be a scorcher. Second you open it, you're just punched in the face with a very super hot note. There's a little bit of a savoriness to that though. So this is interesting. Was not expecting that. Once you get greeted with that super hot note right off the bat, it makes you think that, hey, this thing's ready to party. It's ready to be there. But let's go ahead and get this one poured out. Oh, nice flow. Not as thick as I thought it was going to be. Nice hearty tablespoon. This is definitely going to be geared towards those that are seeking out their own personal best. But cheers. Definitely hot, definitely loud, definitely super hots. Now, with this sauce, great super hot taste, great body. And as you start to appreciate that, I can't tell, is that garlic? Is that playing tricks on me? Nice overall super hot heat, savoriness, sweetness, but then you get that twang really kicking up, ramping up the heat. Full on mouth assault here, full on back of the throat assault. I can really feel salivating like crazy. Great production here. Really hitting the back of the mouth and back of the throat, as well as about that lower to mid portion of the throat. Starting to get my eyes a little bit, going on this one. From a versatility standpoint, I could see myself using this on just about anything. Once again, staying clear of desserts. It's not really geared towards that, so no harm, no foul. This is going to be a great one to put on pizzas, sandwiches, burgers. Using this with like French fries, mixing this in with some, you want to make a spicy dip like ketchup and mayonnaise and some of that, you're going to be having a great time there. Mixing that in with some mustard, having a nice spread on top of a hot dog is going to be phenomenal. Trying to think of other things. I mean, obviously the common go-to is like proteins, rice, veggies. All these would be great. Really kind of only limited to what your own creativity is on that front. The ingredients on EAFO are Carolina Reaper peppers, cider vinegar, onions, water, lime juice, fresh garlic, black Hawaiian sea salt, ghost pepper powder. It wasn't my mind playing tricks on me. That actually was garlic that I was picking up there. This hot sauce is dedicated to all my fellow chili heads who love flavor and can handle heat of Superhots. Eat with caution, as it's been known to cause massive amounts of discomfort. Enjoy, and oh yeah, you can EAFO. Heat coming in at 4.23, aroma of 3.75, a flavor of 3.99, versatility of a 4, burn of a 4.56, for a total swear word rating of 4.11. There we go. An amazing sauce there. This one is once again from Mikey V's EAFO.
If you enjoyed the products that were featured here tonight on Hot or Not, and you would like to pick those up, I'll have the direct links down below for them, as well as a link to the main site, so you can check out all the amazing products that Mikey V's offers, and all the great snacks and different sauces and all the great things in between that they have. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the interview. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
What's up, brother?
Man, doing good. Glad to have you here. Absolutely. We've been able to really get to know each other a lot more recently, and being able to keep up with what you have going on in your garden. And, obviously I know so many of the same people as well, and always hear great things from them. So glad to have you here, and also glad to share with everyone out there who PepperPapi is.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor, bro. This is the first podcast I've been on, you know what I mean? And this is one of my favorites, just in general podcasting, not necessarily even just in the pepper community, So it's really cool to finally get to be here,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the kind words there as well. One thing I always like to start out with, it's really just the icebreaker moment, if you will, is what got you into the world of hot? And then what was that moment that you decided, I'm going to start growing my own Superhots?
So that's, I guess, maybe kind of a long story. When I was younger, one of my best friends, he was like a big brother to me, because he was 20 years older than me, 15 years older than me. But it was a guy named Vic Espinoza. And when Vic was here in the U.S., he worked with my dad, and Vic always loved spicy stuff. He's a big Mexican dude, you know what I mean? He always loved spicy stuff, and so he got me into eating hot sauces and different stuff like that, and so ever since then I like spicy stuff. And then so back around a little over a year ago, probably 16 months ago approximately, I was honestly I was drinking too much, you know what I mean? And so I had went with my dad to get lunch one day, and he told me, "Oh, well, I'm going to, the nursery, the local nursery after this to get stuff from my garden. If you want to go that way, you can help me lift, like bags and stuff." My dad's older, like bags of, I don't even remember, like soil or whatever, I was like, "Yeah, that's okay. I'll go." And so like I went with him, and then I was walking through the plant section, and I saw that they had like seedlings for different, peppers, Scotch bonnets, habaneros, what else? Reapers, although I hate reapers, and what was supposed to be, Trinidad scorpions. Those ended up not growing true, but I bought like all of them, ghosts, you know what I mean? And so I started growing them and stuff, but like from there, I started looking more into like, what is there out there? You know what I mean? Because like I watch a lot of YouTube, and like I over research anything that I'm interested in. And so from there, I found, a bunch of different channels, yours, Johnny's, like directly on YouTube and stuff. And among like other people and stuff too, But then on Facebook, I started getting into like the groups and seeing people talk about the different peppers, because, I saw the chocolate primatali, and I was like, oh, that's the hottest one that was out there, at the time. I was like, I want to try that. So like I started, talking to different people and stuff like that. I saw Johnny talking about Jason Abercrombie. And so, I messaged Jason, and I ended up getting my first box off him. It had chocolate primatali and other stuff in it, and I was, when I ate that, I was just like, holy crap, you know what I mean? So, just kind of went from there, and then I started buying different seeds and stuff online, and learning, as much as I could. Luckily I've had some good people around me that have taught me a lot of different things and stuff. So, I'm still learning every single day. I think, you have to continue learning every single day, no matter what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're passionate about. But if you should never be content. A big problem that I see is contentness, and people thinking that they know everything, and that's, a lot of the time the guys haven't accomplished maybe, as much as they thought that they did, or what they did. I mean, it was something decent, but, it doesn't warrant ever being, for wanting to keep this a family-friendly podcast, which I believe in. I'm sure you understand,
Yep.
but,
yeah.
You don't have to be that type of person. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and luckily I've been around a lot of people like Dean and Matthew and Clayton, you know what I mean? They've, and Nick obviously as well. And they've taught me, a lot. Troy as well, so,
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. No, it's got to be super cool and fun. Definitely with, recently kind of really starting to discover the online aspect of the different pepper groups and everything that you have going on out there. I guess to step back to something that you had mentioned, ordering that first box, prior to you really trying out these Superhots, did you have much experience with Superhots beforehand? How was that?
Not eating fresh Superhots, but, like getting like the Dave's Insanity sauce, and like that when I was a kid, that was just like, you think you're a tough guy, try this Dave's Insanity sauce, we'll see how tough you are. And I always would put it in my chili. I would get guys like some of my best friends and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, you like spicy stuff? They're like, yeah. So I would bust out a spoon, I'd bust out the Dave's Insanity sauce. I'd be like, oh, just try a drop of this. And they'd always like get like immediately sick. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but I didn't really eat too many super hots or anything from there. Maybe like habaneros and stuff like that, but habaneros aren't super hots. They're just hot peppers, you know? So
Yeah.
they do have a good burn quality though.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Now, I guess as you've started to navigate these waters, as you've started to figure things out, you know, probably over time, even in the span of the 16 months, it's probably also been, you know, you've had a favorite super hot or favorite pepper in general. It doesn't even have to be super hot, but like,
yeah.
and I expect that probably kind of morphs and becomes something different, you know, as you've kind of got a better feel and vibe for the different pods and peppers that are out there. So what was kind of that first pepper that you, as you're starting to get introduced to the side of the wild and crazy, you know, stuff that's out there? Was there one that really caught your attention and really made it to where it kind of fueled the fire?
Chocolate primatalis.
Very nice.
Chocolate primatalis. That was the first one. That was the one I wanted to, you know, pursue. And, you know, it was the hottest. I wanted to test myself, you know, with the hottest pepper available at the time, you know. And then now, obviously, it would be the warthogs, you know. I have peppers that I've created myself as well that I love, you know, but, you know, those warthogs, and here I got some peach ones as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, you know, and then like my Yanthy pepper, I love that. That's, you know, a pretty good one.
Definitely a beautiful pod. And, you know, I guess for those that are unfamiliar with it, explain for those that are watching and listening what those, you know, what your crosses are all about.
Okay, so I'll start with these ones. These are the Yanthys. So they're named after my oldest daughter. And this is a purple reaper into a chocolate primatali, because that's what I was growing last year. And I loved the dark foliage of the purple reaper. And I loved how hot the chocolate primatali was. And I liked the taste of it, you know what I mean? And the pod shape and everything looked cool. And Yanthi loves chocolate. So, you know, when, you know, I did that cross, I was like, oh, that'll be cool. And it'd be really cool if they came out chocolate. And they did, you know? And so the next one, sorry, I'm trying to still adjust the camera, is that Athena pepper, you know? And so these Athenas are a red beast into a chocolate primatali. And so they both, I think depending on the day and who it is that's eating them, I think they're both about equally as hot. But so the Yanthi, it is like, it has a good mouth burn to it, but like in your throat and in your stomach, it's just a decimator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you saw what they did to Dean whenever he ate them and stuff.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's a pretty hot pod, and it has a pretty good burn quality to it. The Athena, on the other hand, like, it torches the throat and stuff too, but it's like 90% in the mouth or something. And it's just, they're just rocket ships. And I couldn't be any happier with how they turned out and stuff. And I'm still working on some of them. Like on plant 2 of the Yanthi, I had crossed the variegated Pheno 2 into it, because it has that, the Yanthi plants have that dark foliage, you know what I mean? And then those variegated Pheno 2 warthogs, obviously they're variegated and stuff, and they look cool. So I was like, oh, I wonder how the pepper looks whenever it you know, it's grown F1s, F2s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because some people go into it, like, I think the biggest problem that growers and that creators, I think, have is like they get too reliant on, like, oh, I have to have the hottest pepper in the world. It's like, why? I think that's a lot of the ego and a lot of the I don't even know how to put it. It's just like
the bravado aspect to it.
Yeah, they're just they want to have that. Oh, well, I have the hottest pepper and this and that, bro. I just want to make cool stuff that people can enjoy. You know what I mean? And if it turns out hot, awesome. If it doesn't, also awesome. I'll still find ways to make them useful. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I enjoyed doing it either way. Like one of the crosses that I had, or that I have out there, is one that I had crossed Bubblegum Apocalypse into Chocolate Primatolite, and it's a hot pepper.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the hottest pepper that you or I ate, but it's going to be like, if you gave it to somebody, like just a random person, it's going to be the hottest thing that they ever ate. But it has like medium to medium thin walls, you know what I mean? But it has that bubblegum calyx. It looks cool. But, that's a really good pepper for making like hot sauces out of, and like powder and stuff, because you're getting more powder, you're getting more, I guess, fruit material out of each pepper, you know what I mean? So.
Yep. Yeah, and something that you had mentioned too, which I'm glad you hit on it, because I was going to ask, which was the idea of when you were making these crosses, where you set out, was your intention to make the hottest thing? So obviously, with that not being the initial intent or really your end goal, that definitely makes more sense, because ultimately, to your point, so many get caught up and wrapped up in the idea of, this has got to be the hottest, or it's an absolute failure. And they'll basically just start scrapping what they've been working on if it doesn't meet expectations. But much like what you were saying, the majority of those that are watching and listening are probably going to fall in one or two of these camps. And that's just simply, they're the small subset group that are like you, me, and quite a, small group collectively in the big picture that actually can differentiate, appreciate, and find the different flavor profiles, and really kind of notice the nuances in the different heat and the different way that it burns, et cetera, and sets on. But the mass majority of those that are out there are going to be falling in the realm of, it's just way too hot. They're never going to be able to differentiate, why this habanero is hot, but yet this other pepper that's a super hot is also hot. And they can't tell the magnitude of how painful the two are, because they're already burnt out on a habanero. So, from that standpoint, and with like a lot of natural different like sauce makers, different spicy product makers, the benefit there is they're able to utilize less pepper by having a super hot or an ultra hot into the mix, and then they can kind of dial back the overall amount to still achieve that heat range that they're wanting. But yeah, I mean, perfect example too, as you had mentioned, with like Dean trying them and getting wrecked on some of those, or not quite wrecked, but you know what I mean. Like he was definitely feeling it off of your crosses. The wild and crazy thing is the way that these capsaicinoids end up hitting the overall, every person differently, ultimately. Like, for me personally, and I know I've said this often, which is, no matter how much I train, no matter how much I'm eating spicy stuff on a consistent basis or high, it's like the mouth is the one area that is, it doesn't seem to really raise much. Like the heat always obliterates me there. Back of the throat, stomach, chest, all this other stuff, perfectly fine. Like they can burn there all day long, whatever. I'll deal with it. So it is interesting, and it's something to be able to take into consideration for a lot of these growers and those that are intentionally focused on the idea of crossbreeding and creating these new hybrids. I think not giving up on it and having a clear idea and expectations of what you want to seek out, and just know that you might not get it right the first time, but that doesn't mean that whole idea in the project is dead.
Yeah. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, there are peppers that I cross, and I'm like, I want this thing to be a barn burner, you know?
Yep.
Because, like, you know, I want to send, you know, Dean and Clayton pods and burn them up. I want to send Dean pods and burn him up because he has the highest tolerance I know. I want to send Clayton pods and burn him up to where he pees himself, because that's exactly what he does with every time. Like, when he first got the chocolate warthogs, he specifically saved the biggest one that he had and sent it to me. You know what I mean? Because he wanted to burn me up, because that's what he giggles from, you know? Just like with Matthew. Matthew can't eat anything spicy right now because he has some stuff going on. But, you know, when I burnt Dean up, when Dean ate those 12 Yanthy peppers, and me and Matthew and Dean are sitting on FaceTime afterwards, and he sees Dean sitting there, you know, and his eyes are like this, and he's got, you know, the snot hanging and everything like that. Matthew's like, well, you know, that's a good thing. You know, you got a hot pepper there, it looks like. But, you know, now I guess you're going to have to gear up. And I'm like, why is that? And he's like, I'm going to send you 10 warthogs or 10 peppers. You know what I mean? I'll send you two of each, you know, color. It was like reds, yellows, and peaches, I think. And then, you know, I'll send you some Wartrixes as well, you know? And I'm just like, oh man, you know? So, but you know, that's the thing, is like, they enjoy seeing other people burnt up from those things and stuff. You know what I mean? So like this one right here, I was showing you at the beginning of the podcast, or at the beginning of the call, I guess. This is a chocolate warthog. Because one of my plants started throwing chocolate pods too, because Clayton got his seeds from Keaton, who got that same seed pack from me, you know. But I put kind of faded a little bit. I put chocolate primatali pollen into it. You know? So this, you know, I go into this wanting to make the hottest pepper that I can. You know what I mean? But you know, if it doesn't end up being the hottest pepper on the planet, I'm not going to be upset, because either way, if you take these genetics from this pod shape and you combine it with these genetics from this pod shape, or, you know, this one, which is a little bit different of a pod shape for the chocolate primatalis, you know? It's going to make something that looks cool. You know what I mean? So, like, you know, obviously, like, when we create peppers, we want them to be hot, but, like, you can't bank on, like, if it's not the hottest thing ever, then, like, I'm ruined. I've wasted my time and everything like that, you know, because I'm still going to enjoy this. I know if I send it to you or Dean or Clayton or Chris or Paul or whoever, that they're still going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? And so, and also pods burn people differently. Every pod burns people differently. You talked about the mouth, right? Was the problem. You know what I mean? With you, like, with me to a certain extent. I mean, obviously when you eat a pepper and it's hot, you're going to have that mouth burn. But me personally, I can deal with the mouth burn pretty well. It's once it hits my stomach that I get the problem, because I have Crohn's disease. You know what I mean? So, you know, again, like with what we had referenced earlier, like, you know, like we have chocolate and red warthogs, right? I think the red one's the hotter of the two. You know what I mean? I think that you believe the same thing, maybe. But I bet you somebody out there thinks that the chocolate is the hotter of the two, just because they burn each person differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to that note, is ultimately between the red and the chocolate that I had, I would say, you know, from what because I didn't do it back to back on the same day, I did a day apart. So obviously there could be a little bit that is misconstrued, but ultimately I felt like, because I started with the chocolate first and then I tried the red, I felt like they burnt, as far as like the intensity level, was pretty on par for how that went. I felt like the chocolate
lasted longer in the burn. Now, granted, it lasted longer, but it wasn't like an intense the whole way through. It was just, I could feel it like a more, almost like a phantom effect. Longer, as to where with the red, it was much more sweet. It was much more fruity. It was much more, it also had a little bit more bitterness than the chocolate, which I was kind of shocked because I was expecting this overly earthy, bitter nature to that chocolate pod. And it actually came out with a nice fruity note, a nice sweet note. And so it was very, very well received and very pleasant on that delivery. So, honestly, between the two, now granted, I've only had just those two in the Warthog side of things, but between those two peppers, I feel like as far as the heat and the burn, it's pretty on par with one another. Yes, I do believe, as what you're saying, to the sense of, different chocolates or reds or whatever, they all kind of hit people differently. There's people that are all day long against chocolate pods as a whole, just because they don't like the flavor, the characteristics, etc. So I think that part is where it really falls down to personal preference at that point. Yeah,
exactly. Like I sent Justin some of the Monroe Spicy JJ. I sent him some of the Anthes, and he ate one, and like not even 2 minutes later he booted it up. Because he said he hates chocolate pods. Some people just, that's how, they are, and obviously it's a hot pepper, but like, it's the chocolate pods, they just hit people differently. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's from Troy's talked about it before, some peppers have higher levels of dihydrocapsaicins and stuff like that, So that's why, like, when I do my crosses as well, on top of wanting the different color variants, because then, genetics for both of those. So for example, if I cross like a red, I was trying to find an example. I sent you one in your box. I don't have one on the table right now. I should have pulled one off the plant, but I crossed a chocolate primatali into a Congo pepper that, I got seeds from Justin White for it. It was supposed to be black Congo, but it ended up being a red one. I have other plants that, that ended up being true to that chocolate, black Congo color and stuff. But I put chocolate primatali pollen into the red Congo pepper. So then you're having that total genetic pool, because like the chocolate primatali, that same, cross, I think that's a whole nother conversation, but I think that the red primatali was actually crossed with something, probably inadvertently, to make the chocolate primatali, and that person just ended up getting lucky from that, which either way we have a cool pepper. But you have in that same gene pool of the chocolate primatali and even the red primatali, you have chocolates, mustards, yellows, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So you're getting the total genetic pool of those two different peppers, especially when you get to F2, but you're also getting, the different types of capsaicinoids, so you're getting like with the chocolates, they're higher in dihydrocapsaicin than the reds, but that's why when you eat a red, a lot of the time it doesn't seem like, so like on the testing, it's higher for a red because it has more regular, I don't know if it's monohydrocapsaicin or whatever, but when you eat the chocolate, the total capsaicinoids will measure lower, but it's much higher in that dihydrocapsaicin typically, you know what I mean? Yep. So you'll end up being burnt way worse in a lot of cases, like with the red and chocolate primatali, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, maybe the chocolate might not test as high as the red, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's getting both of those. And that's the thing with the, well, I guess I could have just used the Athena as an example, because that this was a red beast into a chocolate primatale.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So this, I guess, is like the perfect example because you have, the dihydrocapsaicins and stuff of the chocolate primatale, but you also have the regular capsaicin and those red genetics of the beast pepper, and that's where it gets that, kind of brainy, gnarly type of, and then like this top shape here, versus like with the chocolate primatales, they don't really, I mean, they do a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you see these qualities more in the beast, the red beast, than what you would in this, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
No, that definitely makes sense. The interesting thing too about all of it is really finding out, I guess more or less how these, because you hear all the time. Like I think Dean mentioned it with the idea of, I think he said it was the evil avocado. It wasn't, the intent wasn't to be, extremely scorching hot. It was more of a culinary idea aspect, was like the initial drive. And like that pepper is, once again, it's nice and hot. It's definitely exceeds expectations as far as just an initial onset look at it. You wouldn't expect it to be as hot as it is, but once again, it's playing on that dihydrocapsaicin. It's playing on these other areas that end up inflicting more, perceived heat and damage and all the things internally to our bodies than what is maybe able to be tracked, right? Able to pop up on a testing. And that part is the interesting aspect to it all, because you're not guaranteed just by mixing two insanely hot peppers that line that comes from that breed is going to end up being anything, scorching hotter than that. It could actually be a total dud and be lower heat than the two parents that were crossed into it. So really kind of how that whole thing lies, how it falls together, the different iterations in the different phenos and in the different, characteristics, just in all the different ways. And the instability that comes as you are trying to work it out to a later generation is just, it's mind-blowing, because oftentimes you'll see creators really kind of going after making a certain cross happen, and they're very pleased with it for 3-4 years, and all of a sudden they get a little bit of a reversion, and then they have to kind of go back to that older seed stock and start anew, or figure out like, hey, is this thing going to fix itself next generation? Which oftentimes it doesn't, but it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, on paper it sounds pretty simplistic. Take this plant, cross, take some pollen from there, put it with over here on this plant, and in your set. And in theory and doing so, it is that, but at the same time, there's so many unknown variables that can kind of come play into effect on it. But I guess along that note as well, as you were getting into really the whole gardening aspect, the crossbreeding, where did you really start to derive a lot of that knowledge base to be able to start doing this?
So the way that I had learned how to do it, so here's the thing. I started because I still was I was new, so I believed a lot of the crap that, Ed Curry was saying, until I found out that's not how any of it actually works. You know what I mean? You can't take, because I tried it and I tried it. You can't take a little paintbrush, and that's just not how it works. So I started watching a YouTube channel that many chili heads know of, and it's called Kangstar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started watching Kangstar's stuff, you know what I mean? And that gave me, a bulk percentage of the knowledge that I needed on how to actually do that. But then also talking to like Dean and Matthew as well. I know Matthew, he does his stuff because Matthew has a pretty big grow area, so he can, strategically plant everything out and have the bees cross it and then just grow all the seeds and then see what grows true, what doesn't, you know what I mean? And then he'll know that those crosses came out of those,
Yeah.
But like, Dean grows non-isolated too. If he has, if he has crosses done, he kind of has a general idea of what it was and stuff, but he also does the emasculation process like with what I do, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so the only thing that I've really changed in the emasculation process from what I had learned from researching online was some people would take like little baggies and take a toothbrush at the back of a flower and just vibrate it, or like a little shot glass and vibrate it and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I just pull a flower bud off that I know is actively producing pollen. I pop it off, put it in my lip here like this, and I go to the plant. I identify a flower that's about to open. I take a pair of tweezers and I emasculate that flower bud. And then sometimes I'll even, on the flower that I have to pollinate with, I'll pull the pistil
Mm-hmm.
out to where I can get, into the anthers better on the one that I'm using to pollinate. But, and then I'll put them I'll put the pistil from the emasculated one in with the flower that I had pulled off, just like this, you know what I mean? And, I'll like kind of hold it there, for maybe a minute, a couple minutes or whatever. And maybe I'll dip it back, you know what I mean? But a lot of the time, like you can tell because the pistil that you're crossing into has like it kind of like goes out a little bit like this. Yep. A little, but then when you put the pollen into it, I swear, and I could be tripping on this, I swear I can actually see where it has taken some of the pollen. Now that doesn't mean that it's actually going to end up surviving that process, and ripening, because you do need a fully ripe pepper to guarantee that,
Yep.
But like with this, this I had emasculated 2 flowers on the same plant and put pollen into them. Both of them received the pollen, but and started producing like peppers, you know what I mean? Because I track them every day whenever I do my crosses, just to kind of keep and so both of them had started to produce the peppers. One of them ended up dropping off, but this one ended up making it all the way to like through the growth and ripening process and stuff, So that's why, like, when you're doing crosses and stuff, like think about like anything at life, do you always succeed the first time that you do something? Like,
no. Yeah.
So,
no.
So like let's say you played basketball when you were a kid, when you shot a 3-pointer, did you make your first 3-pointer?
No,
I didn't. No. I didn't. I had to shoot probably 10 or 15 or 20 of them at least,
Yeah.
But eventually I figured out how to make that ball go into that basket. You know what I mean? And I was successful at doing it. But not every 3-pointer I shot after that made it as either, It's just something that, but, if you like playing basketball, you keep shooting that 3, you keep playing basketball. You're not going to make 100% of the shots that you make, and that's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, some people get too caught up in the things that they didn't succeed in versus being appreciative of the things that they did succeed in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to tie into that, as you're doing these crosses, as you're taking these multiple attempts at the, really trying to get, parents of these different plants to have this whole thing pan out for you, are you doing just 1 per plant? Are you doing 2, 3 on a plant? How does that look like?
Like different types of crosses or different cross attempts of the same cross?
Yeah, just different attempts of the same cross on the same plant. Do you try to just leave it to 1 per plant, or?
I always try to do like as many as what I have available at the time. So for example, like yesterday, I had been looking to cross red warthog from this plant into chocolate primatali, which would be the reverse of what this was almost, but this was chocolate warthog, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I took a flower from this red warthog plant here and attempted, I just had 2 of them that I could see to cross it into this chocolate primatali plant here.
Uh-huh.
And so I did like 2 attempts of that. But I mean, it's kind of like seeing what you have available at the time. You know what I mean? It's kind of like going back into like that basketball thing or like a boxing or UFC type of a thing, you know? Like if you're boxing or if you're UFC, look at what happened Saturday night with like Chimaev and Duplessis, you know what I mean? Chimaev was, you know, he had the ability, you know, and the opportunity to take Duplessis down, you know, for 5 rounds basically, you know, and he was successful because that's what he did at the time because he had the opportunities to do that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But you know, if Chimaev would have stood up and just tried to have like a boxing match with him or a Muay Thai match or something like that, that might have turned out differently, you know what I mean? Because he was trying to force, he would have been trying to force something other than what he had the ability to do at the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you kind of have to, you know, you have to get that flower off of the pollinating plant or pollinator plant, I guess, when it's producing pollen. If you pick it too early, it's not going to have pollen to pollinate the other one. You know what I mean? If you pick it too late, that pollen's going to be dead. And it's the same thing with the emasculation process for whatever plant that you're going into. You know what I mean? You have to emasculate those flowers before they open up, you know, so you have to but you can't get them too early to where they aren't ready to receive pollen. So you can't get them when they aren't mature enough to receive pollen. You can't get them when it's too far into that maturing process and the flower's opened up and it's already receiving pollen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's seeing what you have available at the time. And it's like, you know, if you really want to get like a certain cross done, like with the Yanthe and the Athena, you know, I wanted to get these crosses done. So I checked the plants every day. Okay, do I have anything available right now? Okay, no, I don't. You know what I mean? Or maybe, yes, I do, you know, because you have to have, you know, a flower that's producing pollen on the pollinator, and you have to have a flower that's, you know, about ready to open up that can receive said pollen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, like when we first joined the call and stuff, you saw I popped out from, you know, the plants because I get down in there and I'm looking and I'm seeing what I have and what I can do, you know, to grab peppers off the plants, obviously, but also if there's prospective crosses, I guess, that I can do that I want to do. Okay, I have this available right now. I can do this right now. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Okay. No, that's super cool. Now, I guess something that I could have touched on earlier and probably should have, which is ultimately, are you growing in ground in buckets? Are you growing, you know, are you growing a large group, or do you have it really consolidated down to maybe like, you know, a smaller number that's more manageable for you to keep up with? What is that? What does your overall grow look like?
So I grow in both. I grow, well, I guess in everything. That's something that I kind of learned from Kangstar too. Excuse me. So I grow in grow bags. My preferred method of grow bags is 30-gallon grow bags and straight compost with perlite. And then I put the like sunshine mix, mycorrhizal peat moss with perlite as well. You know what I mean? Just because I want to help with drainage. And then I put amendments in there and everything like that. So I start with a really good quality compost, you know what I mean? And then, you know, I put cages on my plants. You know, this year I think I'm going to do that, but I think I'll probably use, I don't know, I might go to, because there's 54-inch cages, but also I've seen, you know, other people online using like a thicker gauge chicken wire, kind of, you know what I mean? So, but I might do a combination of both of those things just for whenever the plants start to branch out more, they'll have more support that way. But, you know, I also grow in ground, you know, in soil that has been fortified with the compost. And then I put perlite into that as well for drainage, you know what I mean? Because here in Indiana, we have kind of like clay soil in a lot of houses, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but, you know, I do kind of a combination of those two. So like the varieties that I know that I'm going to want to cross, and that I want to, like, the Ianthes are all in grow bags. You know what I mean? Two of them are in 30-gallon grow bags. And then I had 3 more F1s that I grew, and those are in 5-gallon grow bags. The Athenas are in, one of them is in a 30-gallon grow bag. The rest of them are in a combination of 5-gallon buckets. And then one of them I took an old tire. And this is why I say, like, this, I learned this from, well, not necessarily this, but like, if you have something, like, you know, there's people that grow in cans, you know what I mean? And now, is that the optimal thing that you want to do? Not necessarily, because it all depends on what it is that you're trying to do. Like, if I wanted to, like, say, okay, with the Athena, this is the pheno that I want. You know, I could grow in a small pot. The plant would fill out that pot quickly, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to have your plant's root system spread as much as the plant's root system will spread as much as what it can before it starts to root. So this, you know, theoretically, the smaller that that root system can grow, the quicker that it's going to produce fruits. So if I wanted to stabilize this, you know, and get 3 generations in a year, you know what I mean, then I could do that in a really, really, really small container. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, you know, I'm not necessarily in any rush. I might end up doing something like that. Like, some of them, like, I have a cross of a Gage's giant ghost scorpion into a yellow warthog that I did. Those, those I started later in the year, so I am growing those in, like, smaller potters and stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. But just to where I know that I can get fruits off of them in time, to where I'll have the ability to grow F2 next season. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But, I mean, also I've grown, you know, in hydroponic, like, aero garden systems. I've grown in my garage. You know, at my old house, I grew in the spare bedroom. You know what I mean? Which is how I was able to end up doing a lot of those crosses. You know what I mean? Through the winter and stuff. So it's kind of like, you know, what you have available. You know, my preferred method would be a 30-gallon grow bag. You know what I mean? But you can't have 200 plants if everything's in 30-gallon grow bags, unless you have acres, you know? Yeah. And, you know, but you can't have 200 plants by having, you know, I don't know, 100 to 200 in the ground, and then, you know, 50 in grow bags and stuff. You know what I mean? So.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, for the aspect of having a lot of clay soil, I have that issue as well. And the one thing that I ended up doing when we first moved into this house was the soil was just so bad. It was cracking. It was nothing but just heavy, dense clay and a lot of, like, large rocks. So unfortunately, I didn't really want to, but the soil was in such bad condition that I ended up having to just kind of tear out all these rocks and all the big stones and everything that were in there. And then from that point, then, once everything was cleared out, then working in, like, expanded shell, and then really starting to work in a few amendments and kind of getting it just level set, but didn't use that area for that year, just trying to mend the soil back to life at that point. And then the next year is whenever I decided to do the RCW method and brought in just, 13, 14, I think is the first year I did 13 or 14 yards of wood chips and just brought that in there, layered it. And yeah, like a year, 2 years later, now it's just like absolutely started to become much more fertile, much more aware. And now to the point where this year entirely for everything that was in ground, I put no amendments down, nothing. The only thing I've given that is just simple water. No crazy feeds, no nothing. Now, yes, the rabbits kind of destroyed a lot of what was going on, but the 2 plants that are still there have just absolutely taken off, and they're just going crazy. Now, the rest of the crops, the non-peppers and everything like that, they're doing wonders. I mean, huge, the cucumbers that we were growing this year are wild. The squash and zucchini, insane size on these things. And it's just simply taking the time to amend and to work and to bring that soil back to a healthy state, and then watching it just flourish at that point. So yeah, to your point, yes, the different avenues in which everyone can grow is very vast as far as what you can do, but being able to understand what works best for you in your given environment, in your circumstances. And yeah, I mean, it may be fun. I know a lot of them do. They'll grow. I was going to grab my cup to show, but it's not like it's really that, you understand it more anyways, but like you're able to grow in anything you want. So like you were saying, a can, a cup, whatever. Is that the best thing for the plant? Not really. Is it a little bit torturous to the plant? Kind of. But it's not the end of the world to do so. Plus it has fun little experiments. You can kind of have some fun, a little bit of desk flair, if you will, by having that sitting there and taking care of it. And, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun to see, the overall growth of what you've been able to accomplish, and by taking a seed and then watching it, from that seed go into a little tiny little seedling, and then watch that flourish from a seedling to, a mature plant, and being able to harvest from it. It's very rewarding. It's very satisfying. And it's something that you can, know that it's being able to observe a different set of life, if you will, and watch it as it's along the journey. It's a lot of fun. Definitely is.
Oh yeah.
Now, something that I wanted to mention and touch on. Obviously, we'll have a link down below for everywhere that everyone kind of keep up with what you have going on, whether that be with your YouTube channel or like Instagram, etc. So they can kind of tune in and keep up with as you're making these crosses happen and sharing out with everyone. But with your own crosses that you have, are you seeking out a certain type of pheno shape more so? Are you looking more for a flavor characteristic? Like, what is your end focus that you're trying to achieve? Because obviously right now, with it being early on, I'm sure there's a lot of different iterations, different changes, characteristics, etc. How are you going about the whole selective nature?
So, as far as my crosses are concerned, like, especially with them being this early and stuff, like, I'll see some that pique my interest, you know what I mean? But obviously I want them to taste good, and I want them to look good. I want them to be high, you know what I mean? So, like some of them, for example, so like I was showing you at the beginning of the call or whatever, these are the Athenas that I got off of plant 1,
Yep.
But I also pulled this Athena off of plant 3. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's testing the two, and then because you got to test all the different, and then also here's another one from plant 3.
Yep.
And sorry, this energy drink is kicking in. It's giving me
No, you're good.
But it's testing the different phenotypes and seeing, like last night I ate one off of plant 2, which was kind of like this one. And it was good, but it had a little bit more of a delay in the heat build. but then it peaked around like the same probably, but the flavor wasn't quite as good. You know what I mean? So if I get the same heat level out of these, and these are bigger pods, and the taste is better, and it has like a longer burn, it kind of all just depends on what each particular cross is, because like with that chocolate primatali into the Congo, you know, that cross was done because you think about the original primatali, right? Like you had, you know, the 7-pot primo, which is the hottest independently verified pepper to this day. You know what I mean? If we're going based off of Scoville units, you know, and you had, you know, the yellow fatali, which had, you know, this burn characteristic that was, you know, was really interesting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was, so like the thought process with that was like, I'll take, and with a lot of my crosses was like, I'll take, like the generation before us, you know, I'm 35. I know you're kind of close to me in age, you know?
Yep.
So like our generation, like the generation before us used the 7-pot primo to make these insanely hot crosses because, you know, again, it's still the hottest independently verified pepper, you know what I mean? But, you know, I think that anybody that you give a 7-pot primo to and a chocolate primatali is going to say that chocolate primatali burned them worse, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, you know, the thought process was, you know, like, and like for me personally, I think that the chocolate primatali looks cool too. I mean, you have 7-pot primo, you know, and then you have the chocolate primatali, you know. So they both look cool and they're both stupid hot. So my thought process was, I'll take and do my crosses with the 7-pot primo. I'll do my crosses with the warthog, you know what I mean? And that'll give me my heat, you know what I mean? My guarantee of heat with stuff. But then also, like, you know, when I cross these two, that's going to make a cool looking pod.
Yep.
You know? And the phenos will be all over the place, but it's finding the ones that have, you know, the best phenotypes. Like this Eanthe it has a really cool phenotype to it, you know? So at least in my opinion, that you know, I think that it does. And it had, you know, we have phenos that are like this too, you know, and not every, you know, the phenos aren't going to be perfect with every generation, you know, like the whole point of growing them out is, you know, you're chasing different phenotypes, but also like, again, like kind of going back to that thing where we were talking about, like, you know, like, oh, I have to have, you know, and trying to force something. If you're just finding, you got to find the best of what you have available. You can't force, like, I can save all the seeds I want for this phenotype, right? Or for, you know, the Eanthe in general. If I grow all of them out and I don't find that same phenotype and that's the same phenotype that I'd wanted, I'm going to be disappointed in it, you know, versus like looking at the plants, seeing what I have, and seeing the best of, you know, testing and seeing the best of what comes out of all of it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, you know, it's kind of seeing what you have that comes out of those things. You know what I mean? And, you know, if you get something that, that has the best taste, has the best heat, has the best pheno, and has the best looking plant, okay, cool. You know, but if you have one of those missing, you know, I guess it's kind of just seeing what there is, you know, and kind of weighing your options, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like with the Eanthe and with the Athena, like those being as hot as what they are, you know, I want to find the hottest phenotypes, you know what I mean? That way, when I send them to you, or I send them to Dean, or I send them to Clayton or Chris or Paul or Kenny, you know what I mean? They're going to be, you know, a pepper that going into it knowing you eat it, you're going to be like, oh, that burnt me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But, you know, like with with that Bubblegum Apocalypse chocolate primatali cross, you know, it's a hot pod, but you know, it has the bubblegum calyx. It looks cool. You know what I mean? The plants are super productive. Like earlier I was talking about the plant 2 for the Athena. That one, I took a tire and I dug like 2 feet underground for that plant. And then I filled it with compost and perlite, that mycorrhizal peat moss. And I did that also with that same Bubblegum Apocalypse chocolate primatali cross, you know. And you know, I put the plants in there. That bubblegum chocolate primatali cross, I'm not kidding you, that plant's 6 foot tall and 6 foot wide and just full of pods. It's like weighing itself down with pods. So like you have a plant that is super productive, it's super big, and it also is producing peppers that are medium to thin walled, but also, you know, incredibly hot on most standards. You know what I mean? Yep. Again, it's not going to be the hottest pepper that we ever ate, but most people will, like, if you give it to them and they don't eat chocolate primatalis or warthogs or whatever all the time, it's going to be probably the hottest pepper that they ever ate. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But out of that, you have a plant that is, you know, again, very productive, medium to thin walled peppers, good heat and taste. So it's perfect for people that are making hot sauces. You know what I mean? Like I've had people get a hold of me like, oh, like, hey, like, do you have boxes of whatever that I can buy off of you? Or, and I'm like, well, I mean, like I have, like I showed you the table. I have, I don't know, 50 warthogs I pulled off the plant, red warthogs I pulled off the plant today, or at least 35 or 40 probably, just in like 10 minutes. I have, and I just went and pulled a bunch of Athenas off the plants, you know, what was it, 2 days ago? But I had like 10 that were ripe this morning. You know, I had, I don't know, probably 10 Ianthes that were ripe this morning, a couple chocolate primatalis that were ripe this morning, you know. But like if I just give that Bubblegum Apocalypse chocolate primatali like a week or so, I'll probably have a medium flat rate worth of peppers that I can send to somebody that makes hot sauce. And, you know, I'm not like, even like, you know, certain people, you know what I mean, you know, will, like, I'll just send them peppers, you know what I mean, whatever, you know, because they've been my friend since I first started growing peppers and everything like that. You know, there have been people that have just sent me sauces and tincture and stuff like that because they wanted me to test products. People like that, like, I'll send you whatever I have, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But, you know, if it's like, and a lot of those people, they aren't actually, you know, they wouldn't even let me cover shipping. So it's like, how can I go to that person that sent me 5 bottles of hot sauce, a bottle of tincture, and all this other stuff? I can't go to them and be like, oh yeah, I need X amount of dollars for a medium flat rate.
Yeah.
You know, if I can send them a medium flat rate of those peppers and they can make sauce out of it and they can enjoy it, and maybe now they finally can sell some sauces and get some money from it, and that would be beneficial for their family. That's the thing that I need to do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, if it's somebody that has like a hot sauce company and they're making money and all this other stuff, you know what I mean? That's one thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but again, like, I have to take care of those people to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I have to take care of the people that, you know, like I'm more of, because I have the passion in this, you know what I mean? I try to help the people that have the passion as well, you know what I mean? Because that could help them the same way that it helped me, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it just is what it is, you know, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And then with the, you know, iterations and additions to what you have going on, are you now utilizing? I know we kind of talked about this briefly, but are you making your own products using this? Like, what like clear, like with the overall hauls that you have, like clearly you're not eating all those peppers just yourself. Obviously, you just mentioned you're sending some out to a few folks, but also like, are you doing anything with that? Are you turning it into like powders? How are you going about that?
So I had, because with that pepper that we were just talking about, I was like, this would be perfect for making sauce or powder or whatever with it. So I made like a big batch last weekend, ended up getting like a gallon worth of sauce from it, and kind of testing the batch. I was like, well, what can I do with this, or what have I not done yet? Because like pineapple is pretty easy to make a good hot sauce with, you know what I mean? Especially with red and stuff. So I was like, I could do that, but I could try this other thing, and I did, and it turned out pretty good. I just got a new funnel to put into the little squeeze bottles and stuff,
Very nice.
I was kind of ghetto doing it, taking a bag and just cutting the corner off, just to have like a tester bottle to have, but it's been in half-gallon mason jars, in the fridge, just kind of chilling and stuff, like literally and metaphorically chilling, since then. But like the rest of them, like, so for example, I have those same half-gallon mason jars. Like here is one that I labeled birthday tink because I started drying out the pods on my birthday, and then I kind of turn them into flake and put them in here. Of random pods, a lot of Ianthes, and then there's like different colors of warthogs in there, a bunch of just what I had available. You know what I mean? And then I also have this, which is the Ianthe tincture. And I started this, the weekend after my birthday, So this is all Ianthe powder. So like I have them or quarter them or whatever, and I dry them in the oven, and then I blend them up and I make powder out of them, and then I put them into these half-gallon mason jars, and I'm letting them sit as long as I can. I'm not really in any rush to get them out of there. I don't consume a lot of tincture. I make that just to burn people up with, you know what I mean? Yep. I know a lot of the tap crew guys, they love tincture. So, and that also gives them a way of like, it's not that I don't trust sending the Ianthes or the Athenas to everybody, right?
Yeah.
But that gives everyone a way of trying the peppers that I create without trying to rename them into some catchy name, like with what Ed did to Troy, so
and with that too, it's like you're also working towards finding out the exact shape, all the different. You're still working on stabilizing and perfecting your crosses, so it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't want that just naturally getting out there, because so many things can go awry. Not to mention it's so early on. Even if you sent it to someone in like good faith, right? And they go to grow it, or maybe they try that one in particular, because you have plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, etc. Like say this is the beginning of the year, you're starting to be ready to send them out. Like you might have an inconsistency among that one plant, and you wouldn't know it. And so it makes perfect sense to not really want that to get out there too much per se, but do it in much more of a controlled release way, just simply from still working on things, right? It's not 100% dialed in to exactly where you want it right now. So yeah, and I mean, also it goes down to like everybody I've sent boxes to try these peppers, like I send it to them to try the peppers. I'm not selling boxes, again, maybe once, later in the season or something like that, I might sell boxes to like hot sauce companies, or, if somebody
that I don't really know reaches out, I'll sell them a box. I'm not going to give you anything that I wouldn't. I wouldn't give them anything that's not just available out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's because of these seed companies. And I'm not going to say any names, but
Yep.
everybody in the know in the pepper community knows there are some really crappy seed companies.
Yep.
And some really crappy people that own these really crappy seed companies. And they might have people that they send hundreds of dollars of seeds to every year for free, just so they have one or two people that say, oh, well, so-and-so's, not that bad of a guy, or this and that, but it's like, you can pull up countless screenshots of racism, horrible things that these guys say and everything. And the worst part is that some of these growers would be like, well, I'm not getting in the middle of it. It's like, I'm not telling you to get in the middle of it, but I'm just saying, like, you're going online and you're supporting this person, right? And some of the really bad ones will like defend that type of a thing, And so, but those seed companies have never created anything themselves. They've never, and the minute that they know that they have what they want or can't get what they want out of you, then all of a sudden they go to trying to talk crap about you or talk crap about, some of them have literally done just outright blatant defamation cases against people that they couldn't buy off in the community, and that's one of the things that's really sad, and eventually, inevitably, if the community doesn't weed those guys out, eventually they will end up obtaining seeds of peppers that the creators have no want for those guys to have availability to.
Yeah.
But, they'll never get seeds from the creators of them. They'll have to do some squirmy little worm thing, you know what I mean?
Yep.
To try to obtain those seeds, but they'll talk crap the whole time that the creators, don't allow them to have them, but it's crazy because you'll have like this fully, and like literally, bro, you can see it. There's documentation of countless cases of it where these seed companies will suck up to these guys, right? And then they're like, oh, can I get this? And it's like, no, they realize that they have no chance to get that. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, what even is a warthog? Did that guy even create that pepper? It's like, yes, the guy created the pepper. Yes, the warthog is the hottest pepper that when you get it can be grown, So, and the word, and like one of the other bad things, a lot of these seed vendors, like, bro, if I send somebody seeds, they're probably going to be non-isolated. If I send you peppers, they're probably going to be non-isolated. Well, I isolate the plants that I 100% want to make sure that I have stable genetics from. Yeah. You know what I mean? But, like, for example, like the pods I sent you are non-isolated. If you save seeds from them, some of them might have accidentally crossed. By the end of the season, I will have isolated seeds to save the genetics for the ones that I want to have, the same genetics for,
Yeah.
But a lot of these seed vendors, they'll tell you, oh, I'm isolated. Now I did all this myself and this and that. But like, there's just countless times where like they'll talk to growers that grow non-isolated, or talk to people that work at greenhouses that sell seeds by the ounce. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they'll go pay so-and-so $50 for an ounce of seeds. And then they'll pay some single mom that's, strung out or whatever, you know what I mean? Just trying to get enough money and, to bag these seeds up into 10 bags. But then they'll go online and say, oh, I grow non-isolated. I've been in the company, or in the community for 20 years and this and that, and try to decredit everybody else. It's like, that's such a toxic aspect of the pepper community. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off in this tangent and stuff, but it's really sad because like 95% plus of the people in the community are guys just like us, just like Matthew, like Clayton, Dean, Chris, Paul, Kenny, all of these guys, but you have some bad apples, you know what I mean? And luckily, a lot of those bad apples are, older guys, you know what I mean? But, it's crazy because it's like you have extremes of like Matthew, who's just like the nicest, most caring and loving guy that you'll ever meet. And then you have those other guys, and I mean, listen, bro, we know who I'm talking about. The last thing I'm going to do is say these guys' names, not because I'm afraid of them, but because that's all that they want is they want people saying their name. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, but at the end of the day, look, bro, we're young. We're in our 30s, right? Think about how blessed we are to inherit the world that has been created by Matthew, been created by Nick, created by Dean. You know what I mean? Like created by Clayton, all these guys, it's on us to continue on those guys' legacies. You know what I mean? Because that's what we want our children to inherit, right? We don't want them to inherit hate. We don't want them to inherit jealousy and envy and greed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so that's, I think, the biggest thing, that we can do for the community, because it's our responsibility as men, right? To provide for our families, to create the world that our children will, grow up in and, mold themselves when they become our ages. You know what I mean? Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely. And to the same point, what you had mentioned earlier as well, like the idea of isolation is great. I believe in it. I do like it. However, at the same time, the idea, really, the whole passion, the drive for the community as a whole is the enjoyment. It's the love. It's the trial and error. It's the, being able to just get out there and do it. And, the mass majority of times, yes, things are not going to be isolated, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. If you want a specific line, you want a specific pepper to continue, do the proper precautions, isolate if you can, isolate the best you can as well, and really just, take that approach. But at the end of the day, the mass majority of those that are out there in the community aren't going to, it's not going to be the end of the world if they order a box and it's not, it's not isolated. Because sure, there's probably a big number that do pull seeds from those peppers once they get them, and that's what they start to build their seed stock around. But those aren't the same people that are going to be complaining on things not being isolated, right? Those are the ones that are just there for the joy, the love, the passion, the drive. And that's really what continues to spark this whole thing. Naturally in nature, you have just different, it doesn't have to be just peppers. You have different plants growing everywhere. You're going to run into a natural evolution, if you will, of these different plants. And so to discredit or to snub your nose at the idea of what nature itself can unravel and unfold and create is a bit silly. Now, for the ones that are braggadocious, they're beating on their chests, they're renaming things, the many iterations that do spiral out from that. that's a whole different thing. And yes, and to that point, that toxicity, that negativity, it's not the greatest look for not only the community, for those that are coming in, but it's also not the greatest look for those that have been in it, because then they start to become a little bit jaded. And I think ultimately that's one of the biggest core problems, is the ones that are the most bitter, the ones that are trying to drag everyone down or disrupt those that are coming in, etc. They're very jaded individuals. They don't care anymore. They are just going to do them, and anyone in their way is going to see it, hear it, and feel it. It's not a good look, not a good way to go about it. Something also that was, we had kind of mentioned earlier that I think is also important. Once again, the idea of reflecting on, there's so many people that are able to not appreciate or differentiate or taste anything once a pepper reaches a certain heat. Now, the other side of that is, how many that are able to handle more than the average person, at what point do they fizzle out? Because just based on what I've been able to observe and the people that I've been able to talk to, once you hit that 1.4, 1.5, et cetera, you're, anywhere from really 1.3 to 1.5 a million on peppers that have just been tested, they're not really able to differentiate. There's another subset that are not able to differentiate anything that is hotter than that. So then it starts to beg to differ the idea of when peppers are naturally occurring at a higher level of SHUs on their testing, realistically, how are they going to start differentiating? I mean, hypotheticals here, like we have, peppers that are in the 1.5, the 2 million, et cetera, et cetera. What happens whenever this thing crosses the 4, the 5 million? Like we all know what it's like. Those that have done challenges and, done products that have capsaicin crystals, et cetera, in it. But like that, you're going in for a challenge. You have other competing flavor profiles. You have other competing things in there that like distract your palate, distract your mind from, say, the same experience that you would gather from eating a fresh Superhot. So it's like we are teetering, if not already there, on the edge of everyday normal consumption, really kind of like not being that recognizable from one pepper to another, based on that heat, right? So, talking a very small subset that is getting laser focused in on such a small factor is also a little bit silly at that same time, because realistically, we, like I had mentioned earlier, you could set down 3 or 4 different peppers that are similar in heat as far as what they deliver to you. But realistically, pepper 1, for sake of argument, could be higher in the dihydrocapsaicin, or pepper 2 could just have a different burn characteristic in the way that it comes on. Pepper 3, same thing, different burn characteristic, the way that it comes on. Pepper 4 could actually be the technical hottest out of that group. And then pepper 5 could just be a complete dud, but you have no idea. Like between 1 through 4, the average person isn't going to be able to tell you, what came from that. They just know, man, that's hot. I don't know if that is for me, or maybe they love it. Like that's really the flip side of that. So I think the idea of appreciating where we have been, and also appreciating what has been created and how it was created, and starting to love the idea of, you mentioned it earlier, the dark foliage aspect. There's a lot of people that love that. I mean, I love it. It's very beautiful. It's a very great characteristic to see. And so like you need to start, as growers, as people within the community that are consuming, etc. Like, start to find out what resonates and calls to you, and really find that love, find that appreciation, share that with others that may not have seen it in that same light or lens that you do, because then maybe that love and passion might end up continuing, right? So yeah, I think that ultimately it's just going to be something that if people stop trying to worry about who's the top dog, if you will, and more about supporting, caring, growing, loving, knowing all these different aspects, and just embodying the life, the culture, the everything that comes with it, you're going to be happier first and foremost with what you're doing. You're going to continue to foster the knowledge base of those that are coming in, and then 3, you're not going to be bogged down or eaten up by the negativity that's out there. And I think that's ultimately where we need to see the community continue to grow into. So yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is that a lot of people, that's their whole life. Okay. And now my whole hobby, my whole passion is that, right? But I also have a 9-to-5, which I use to provide for myself and my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also have, my family, right? To, which are, those girls are the ones I love more than anybody,
Mm-hmm.
And I love a lot of people, so like, but, and then I also have like video games. Like if I just want to, okay, I've worked so much. I've done everything with Pepper so much. Emily and the girls are taking a nap or whatever, Okay, I'll go play some Rust, or I'll go play some Diablo 4 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that a lot of those guys, their whole well-being resides in, oh, I have to sell so many seeds, or I have to have the world's hottest pepper, or I don't have to anything. Okay. The most important thing in life is, like, obviously God, your family, right? But it's freedom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from God and your family, it is freedom, and even more so than knowledge and peace, right? Because without freedom, you don't have, the ability to gain knowledge. You can gain peace through expanding, the amount of knowledge that you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty close between, freedom and knowledge, because some could make the argument that, with enough knowledge, you can gain freedom. But if you never are free to obtain that knowledge to begin with,
Yep.
and that's something for me that is so, I'm really lucky because I can still kind of enjoy it, because again, I don't have to make the hottest pepper in the world. I don't have to sell the most seeds. I don't have to do any of that. Anything that I do is out of passion, out of, wanting to create enjoyment for people. Because that's why I got into it to begin with. I was drinking, and, I started eating Superhots,
Mm-hmm.
and I started growing Superhots. I started creating Superhots and hot sauces, and now I'm making tinctures and stuff. If there's somebody out there, they want to grow a warthog or a Deadpool or a 7-pot primo or a chocolate primatali or a chocolate bootla or whatever, you know what I mean? And that would really just make their day, or if it could help them get out of drinking too much, or maybe, some people deal with addiction with drugs and stuff like that.
Yep.
If I can do something to help somebody in a situation, or maybe they're just depressed,
Mm-hmm.
And they start eating Superhots and they get the endorphins, or they start growing those peppers and their mind isn't just, stagnant, and just being cruel to themselves. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I can do something to help somebody that is going through something like that, I think that it's something that I have to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and that's kind of the whole, that's kind of like the whole thing that Matthew wants, you know what I mean? Is he wants people to just be able to enjoy doing those things. You know what I mean? You don't have to have, a bank account full of money to grow the hottest pepper in the world. As a matter of fact, there are people that claim to have bank accounts full of money that can't grow the hottest pepper in the world. You know why? Because they're horrible people. You know what I mean? So it's that kindness, it's that caring, it's that compassion. You know what I mean? And that's, the most important. Not trying to be hippie and all this, but that's the most important thing in any situation in life. You never know what somebody's going through.
Yep.
Sometimes as men, we can't talk to people. There's a stigma with it. You know what I mean? Bro, there's no judgment from me.
Yep.
There's no.
Yeah. And I think that's something that definitely needs to be, I guess, changed, is the whole stigma of not being able to talk about that and wanting to hide and hold in, because there's so many that are out there. And while they are dealing with a lot going on in their life, they're also not wanting to let that out or share that with anyone else. So then they're dealing with it on their own, but at the same time bottling it. And then it just spirals, and, nothing good comes from that. At the end of the day, nothing good comes from it. So, finding people that you care about, love, trust, you can confide in, is absolutely crucial. It's a great thing to not only have your continued growth and aspects really play out, as far as your own personal growth, you're being able to evolve with the times too at the same time, because there's a lot of things. Well, technology is a perfect example. I mean, you just look at where AI was just a few years ago versus now. It's like there's so many people that were, and I mean, I guess I was a little bit hesitant early on about it. Still don't fully know where I sit, because part of me says it is what it is. Just be able to understand it ahead of time before it's. But the whole thing is a little bit crazy as far as what can be done. But, you have a lot that will just, they're forever going to be stuck in that pattern where it's like, I will never, ever even remotely entertain that idea. Well, it's like, whether you want to accept it or not, it's still happening. So it's a bit of a tough situation in that sense, but much like trying to ignore something that's going on, it's in a similar vein. If you're not talking about the issues that are going on, it's not going to make it go away. You're just going to be dealing with it in a scenario where it's not on your terms, if you will, and things could really get out of hand. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like that. I think a lot of the time is the reason why people turn to alcohol, why people turn to drugs. You know what I mean? Combined with like not having something going on that can kind of keep their mind and their time frame busy. You know what I mean? So, but. And then also, a combination of not having a good support system around them. You know what I mean? For being stuck in a toxic situation, So, you got to get yourself out of toxic situations that are like that. You got to get yourself a good support system, good things that are productive, you know what I mean, to do other than just, drinking half of a fifth or a fifth of whiskey every night. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so you got to get people you can talk to about that stuff with. You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. Well,
You know, the time has absolutely flown by. I forgot the game, but it's okay. We can go ahead and skip past that. But what I do want to talk on and touch on is obviously the nugget of knowledge, and I think because of really the time frame in which you've been plugged into the online aspect of the different pepper communities and hot sauce, et cetera, communities. It's going to be from a perspective of those that are coming in, right? You're getting plugged in now. What would be your nugget of knowledge for those individuals that are just getting started? They're just starting to figure out these online communities and navigate them, which you're very well aware, as well as I'm sure many others that are listening and watching are. There is a surplus of groups out there. Now, not every group is created equal, but, the different avenues like that. So what would your nugget of knowledge be for those individuals just starting out and wanting to gain a good core understanding of what it takes and what is out there?
As far as the online groups, or just in general with the pepper community?
Yeah, I would say more so geared towards those online groups, because I feel like that's where a lot of people falter, is like getting plugged in maybe into the wrong spaces.
I would say if you can get into Cap Crew is, one of the best, groups that there is personally. You gotta be careful with certain situations. You know what I mean? Outside of Cap Crew, for the most part, everybody in Cap Crew is knowledgeable, and they're not going to steer you in the right directions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's some people even in there, they get a few $100s worth of seeds sent to them for free every year by seed vendors. And of course they're going to say good things. You know what I mean? But I would say Cap Crew is definitely, the place to start. Talk to Dean, talk to Matthew. If Clayton doesn't have Facebook, if you can talk to Clayton, he has his email. Talk to Nick. Talk to those guys. Find people that are reputable, that aren't known to be, just bad people. If you can do a simple Google search, you can find the rotten eggs in the community, and the people that are going to take advantage of certain people. If a deal sounds like, or if something sounds like it's too good to be true, it is. It isn't that it probably is. It is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, my biggest thing would be, unless it's like, and I don't even know if this person is in the top, 3 to 5 searches, but like when you go to Google seed vendors, if it's the first or second person or link that comes up, don't go to those guys. You know what I mean? Because the problem with that is, on the Google searches, it's people that are paying money to have those top search results, and that's not always the best person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or best place to get seeds at. With White Hot, they have good seeds and stuff, but they're non-isolated. But and the thing too is that, like, some people claim that they grow isolated and they don't. They don't even grow the peppers that they take the seeds out of to send you, and they come from non-isolated grows, So, find people that, like Brandon, like Dean, like Clayton or Matthew, that have been in the community, and that know what they're talking about. and learn from them about, you know, what that, you know, what you can do. I mean, we're all nice guys, you know, we're going to help people any opportunity that we have. If we have downtime, somebody messages us on Facebook or whatever, you know, comments on the podcast or on the YouTube videos that we have, and they want to learn about certain things. Like, if we have time, if we see it, we're going to get back with you and we're going to help you. That's just because the people, when we started out, did that for us.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, but when people act like I've been growing for 20 years, or I am so smart. If you see somebody that has like a mentality of like, where they act like they're better than you, like there's another guy in the community who actually is a creator, you know, and, you know, he has that mentality, you know. And, you know, his greatest accomplishment, he created a pepper that was almost as hot as the chocolate primatale, you know, but he's one of the biggest D-bags in the community, and he supports some of the bad seed vendors that take advantage of people and talk crap to people, talk about people's wives and children and families and stuff, you know. And, you know, I hate that those guys are like that, but you know, they have these giant conspiracy theories about, you know, all this other stuff, but it's just not the case, you know. So you just got like, find people that are the kind people that are willing to help. And you know, like Dean and Matthew, right, are two of the nicest people you ever met, right? Guess who are two of the guys that have the most knowledge that you can talk to in the community, you know?
Yep.
And Troy too. Troy is so kind. Troy has literally a degree in, you know, agriculture or whatever, you know what I mean? And, you know, versus, you know, inversely on the other side, the guys, you know, that don't have degrees, or maybe they do have a degree, but you know, it's nonsense.
Yep. Yeah.
It's nonsense. You know, a lot of the community has nonsense, you know, and it all comes from greed and their egos and stuff like that, you know. So just when you see something that's too good to be true, or it seems like nonsense, you know, it probably is, you know. If you go to buy seeds online and you see somebody's picture zoomed in this much and it's barely just enough to see one picture, or they have a plant and it's next, or they have a pepper they take off it and it's next to a nickel or a dime or whatever, you know, in the thing, you know, there's a reason they're not showing you their whole plants or their whole grows. You know what I mean? So, like, I showed you my grow, right? I don't got nothing to hide. You know? I don't got nothing to hide, you know? And guess what? I'm not the best. I'm not the best. I'm not nowhere near the best. You know?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. Even when people talked about how hot, you know, some of the peppers were, first thing I always said, Warthog's still the hottest. It just is. You know what I mean? And, you know, it just is. The red Warthog is the hottest pepper that there is. It just is. You know, I listen, I will never try to talk bad about somebody or make somebody out to be lesser because they had a hotter pepper than me. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it just is, you know, but not everybody has that mentality. You know, how are you gonna work with the people around you to create something better for people to enjoy, to create something that is a better world for your children and your children's children, if you're going at each other's throats? Because so-and-so has a pepper that's hotter than one that I created, or I created a pepper that's hotter than the pepper that so-and-so created, or so-and-so has never created any peppers. and they can't grow any of those hot peppers.
Yep.
So they'll try to defame our character, right? Versus just, doing the right thing, bro. Just do the right thing.
Yeah. Very well said on that. Just do, at the end of the day, do what you can. Don't worry about getting bogged down with others. And I think, yes, being able to join some of these groups and find out whether you're doing your own research or asking around will help alleviate and guide you in the right directions for those that are just coming into the community. So absolutely agree. Now, here's your chance to put someone on the hot seat. This is someone that you think would make a great guest for the show.
So, the obvious choice is somebody that, listen, my choice is going to be, because, the first person I would say is Matthew, but I can't say Matthew. You already want to get on the show. I would love to see Matthew on the show, obviously, but everybody knows Matthew. So the person that I'm going to nominate is going to be my friend Chris at the Grumpy Gill.
All right.
Chris is, a great dude. He's one of the most loving and compassionate people and one of the kindest people that there is in the community. You know what I mean? And he makes some super awesome products, just like this shirt here. This is his Warthog shirt that he made. He makes everything from spicy candies to spicy corn nuts. He grows a lot of super awesome peppers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm still going to talk to Matthew and try to get him to come on the show and talk with you,
Yep.
But, you got to get Chris on here because, I think he really deserves more notoriety in, the community, because he's just one of the kindest dudes that you'll ever meet in your life. You know what I mean? And so I think he deserves to get more love in the community.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Grumpy Gill, I will be reaching out. We'll be setting up a time to have you on the podcast. Look forward to that. Thank you for that nomination. And now here's the chance to let everyone know this greatly benefits those that are just audio only listening on Apple Podcasts. Where can they find you? How can they find you?
So the best way to find me would be on Facebook, probably. I have Instagram and stuff like that, but my Facebook is Samuel Games-Spencer. You'll see a picture of my beautiful fiance and oldest daughter and myself in the profile picture. But also on Instagram, I think it's Pepper_Papi with 3 eyes. On Instagram, my YouTube is at PepperPapi69. So yeah, those would probably be the best avenues, I would say.
All right. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Love to have you back. So definitely looking forward to that.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it, and I would love to come back.
Sam, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. If you would like to keep up with PepperPapi, I will have all of his links down below on all the ways that you can keep up with him, as well as if you enjoyed the products that are featured here on Hot or Not, I will have the direct links down below for those, as well as a link to the main site so you can check out the full lineup of amazing products. And hey, want to say thank y'all so much for continuing to share this out around, as well as all of those that have recently found the podcast and are listening and commenting and reaching out. Thank y'all so much for all that positive support. Continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are just curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. Don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. And also want to give a shout out to the sponsors, podvision.io. If you are looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you've hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all of those needs, as well as webdx.one. Maybe you have an online site, maybe you had someone at one point, you've lost contact with them, or maybe you never got around to building one.
highly recommend checking out WebDX.1. They make it simple, easy, painless, and you get to focus on what you do best while you get looking great online. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.